a little about all our panelists. Lubaina Sheerazi is the founder and CEO of BRANDit, which, as all of you know, is the leader in the luxury travel destination space. Lubaina has been instrumental in really making some destinations, trending destinations, thanks to the amazing work she has done in marketing the destinations so effectively, thanks to all that they have done with the entire ecosystem, whether it is media, brands, among others, who make a destination a trending destination. So that's really something all of us have to learn from Lubaina Sheerazi. Pankaj has had a very interesting career. Of course, now, as you know, a photographer is really somebody who helps create the marketing material for any destination, not just for a destination, but an entrepreneur too, because it's the images he captures which gets them not just the likes, but the business too. And I did ask him, how did you get into this profession? And it's all about when he was shooting some photos in Agra, and one thing led to the other, and his...
Basically a fluke.
His friend's father recommended that he enroll for a Bachelor of Fine Arts, specializing in photography in JJ. And of course, he will tell you why travel photography happened much later. So Prasad is a Matunga boy, right? He studied at Don Bosco, then he completed his engineering. I know I've said this more than once. And he's had a very distinguished career with some of the top media houses, from NDTV, Condé Nast, where he worked with Condé Nast for almost a decade, till 2017. He launched the magazine, and he has been on his own. And he, of course, as you know, specializes in the long-form communication. Riaan started his career as a journalist. He was with L'Officiel for almost a decade. And he is one of the few long-form communications journalists who has really made that shift into content creation. We know a lot of influencers, but we rarely have seen the byline, but many of us are familiar with the byline. Riaan has been an editor, and now one of the most sought-after content creators in his space. And of course, how many countries have you traveled to, Riaan?
Oh God, I don't know. I can't remember.
Well, of course, later on I have to ask you where you would like to travel to. Okay, first up, we have a very diverse, guests in our audience. Those who are from the travel industry, some who are travel entrepreneurs, and many others who would like to go back and guide others on careers in the travel industry. So first up, a little macro view from Lubaina. When we thought of the travel industry, we knew after our graduation, we did a one-year course, am I right, at a Garware Institute or one of the top polytechnics in the metros. And we took up a job in the travel agency, and we joined one of the most sought-after companies. But what we really specialized in was ticketing, hotel booking, and now we know the industry has come such a long way. A little macro view on the jobs today and what's really happening today. Thank you, Lubaina.
Oh, it's a very interesting topic. Thank you, Parthip. I can go on and on, but I think a whole lot of people that I see who made it really big, I feel are people who just got into it by fluke. I don't know how many of you all are parents here, or your parents asked you to join the travel industry. At least the ones that I see who run very successful travel companies and live the most glamorous life that you'd want to live are people who probably have been in business for many years, they've inherited it. So, their parents used to be sort of, running travel companies, etc. So they were legacy businesses. But yeah, so I think a lot of people who choose travel as a career are also driven by passion. So a lot of them are travel buffs or travel enthusiasts. And if you go back like 15 years, I think a lot of people who didn't make it in a certain industry and, didn't really have much of a chance just chose travel. And which is why, to be very honest with you, there's a severe lack of talent. I'm talking about, from like the kind of people that we can really have in our industry. And there are travel companies over here who will say that, right? I mean, barring them who really run the travel company, but it's, so they are quite enthusiastic, but to get great talent is a problem. So it's really there's a talent crunch over here. But in terms of how have roles evolved, I'd say that I think much before my time, I used to hear about, people having airline jobs. They were the most coveted.
And before that, hospitality.
Correct.
Hospitality and airlines were synonymous with travel.
Correct. And people who got their job, for them, the first and the last job was that one. Like, they wouldn't want to leave it. I used to remember hearing that, at least, when I was
That's also because the entrepreneurial
school.
Opportunities were so few.
Correct. So those were like really coveted jobs, and, people just kept to that. But they were few. I think a lot has really changed over the years, and that change has come about in the last 10 to 15 years. But I don't think there's really any structure to it as such. I mean, people, of course, run travel companies and stuff like that. But today, I think what I do is a niche in the travel industry. I don't think many people really know. So what I run is essentially a PR agency, but I do a lot more than PR.
PR, marketing, and much more.
Yes, so I do sales, PR, and marketing for tourism brands. So typically, my clients could be Incredible India also, or maybe the state of Rajasthan that I promote in India or abroad. But currently, I'm promoting a lot of the world in India. So I work with ministries of tourism and culture, typically, so they are foreign governments, so they are my clients, and I help to promote them over here in India and inspire people like you to travel to different countries like Hungary, Kenya, Azerbaijan, Thailand, Seychelles, and I've been doing that for the last 15 years. And I don't think many people really know about it because, whenever I speak about it, people don't seem to get what I exactly do till I really break down the role. But yeah, I think in the last decade, the way I think it has sort of expanded, I see what especially Riaan does is something that has really come out right out there. And a lot of people have changed their professions to
So
pursue
we
it.
have three people. Talking of inspiration, we have somebody who's inspiring through his photos, somebody through long-form communication, and someone who's Riaan who's doing it through content creation. I'll come to the jobs bit later, and I was also going to ask you about the one question which everybody asks is, iske liye padna kya chahiye, ki qualifications kya? And I really enjoyed my chat with Pankaj. The first thing when you talk about photography, I'm sure somebody literally, if I can say from old school, will ask, mere bete ko kidhar qualification hai? That's one thing. And things have changed a lot. But I just loved what you said. Besides the technical knowledge which a photographer should have, what are the soft skills of a successful travel photographer? I'm not talking of technical, for which you can conduct a 3-day workshop, but the soft skills, yeah.
Happy to receive this question. Hi, everybody. Happy to receive this question, which essentially defines that I'm a successful photographer. Thank you.
Of course.
Well,
That you are, there's no doubt.
You're just being humble, Pankaj.
Well, I feel relieved to know that. The idea of having that kind of soft skill, as what they say, is that, I mean, we all know what the technicalities of a camera can be. You don't need to even go to a college to know that. A YouTube tutorial can actually tell you what it is after a point. It's the attitude that comes along with this job that you really need to take it on. What I essentially try to do my best is not to just shoot. I would say I am more than a photographer. I'm like a luxury lifestyle image consultant to the client, where I try to get into the DNA of their brand and then try to understand what they really require, instead of just picking up a camera and saying that, hey, I'm this also awesome photographer and here's this best photo in the world that I can ever give you, take it or leave it. Well, the attitude has to be where you need to understand that you're not just shooting for your passion, just because you love photography, but you have to realize that you're shooting it for a hotel or a restaurant or a tourism board or like, for someone, for a product or a service. That kind of an attitude shift is the undercurrent for the soft skill that you need, I would say.
But I would also add to that, what Pankaj has is when he goes with his camera and his lovely smile, I'm sure he just motivates anybody, and that person will feel like he or she is a supermodel, right?
Well,
that's what Pankaj's smile and camera can do.
I can back you with that by saying that, with a camera in hand, I don't really see myself really applying for a visa or like for some kind of, constraint for that. Because just a camera in hand, people just know that you're a photographer. By the end of the day, you pick up the camera with a smile on your face. People just know it. You don't need to know the language. You don't need to know what their culture is. They'll just look at you and they'll just know who you are. And then
unlike a journalist like Prasad who has to ask questions, very often you probably needed an interpreter, right? Also during your travels.
Sometimes yes, especially like say if you go to Japan or countries where English is not people's first language, then yes, you often do need an interpreter, and then getting to understand what people are trying to tell you is often a challenge and a kind of skill that you have to acquire over a period of time, because it's not always the best stories come from knowing the lives of people.
True.
And the lives of local people. So yeah, you do need a
Prasad,
translator.
Lubaina spoke about the glamour. The first, when you tell people where you're traveling to, the first thing they'll say, lucky you, Prasad, you're traveling to this most amazing hotel in Maldives or Seychelles or anywhere else in the world. But a little more about the life of Prasad, the writer. When you travel for 2 or 3 days and you've been invited by the tourism board, you've flown thanks to first class or business class tickets from the airlines, and then you're staying at this beautiful resort. But tell us about the other side. Like, I love knowing about what happens behind the scene in a hotel or a wedding. It's not as glamorous as it seems to be, but a little on the other side of what all the other challenges or the deadlines you have as a writer. Because there's so much for you, which expectations. Prasad is there at the hotel, right? Yes.
I mean, I think anyone who works in travel, who writes or creates content around travel, both of these guys will vouch for it, is that any tourism board, any representative destination management company, as they're called, try to pack up every second of your time from the moment you wake up till the moment you're ready to crash. And even then, they'll try to push you for a little bit more. And the idea is to for them, it's just to pack in everything that you can possibly experience and hope that that'll translate into a story. So typically, if I'm at a hotel, let's say the Ritz-Carlton, you think that I'm sitting by the pool because that's what Instagram tells you. But actually, I'm having, every breakfast, lunch, dinner, every available moment of the day, I'm with somebody from the hotel, the general manager, the marketing manager, social media manager, somebody who wants to show me something about the hotel. So you're not really chilling. That's only for the imagery that we sort of create and churn out. But otherwise, what you're doing is work. And that's what a lot of people who want to get into travel, whether they are content creators or writers, often don't realize that at the end of the day, it is a job, and you have to approach it from that perspective. If you think it's a vacation, then this is really not.
After some time, it's not a vacation, but it's work too. Riaan, we've all seen how hotels wooed the long-form, the traditional journalists, as they say, or long-form communication, and it's now content writers. You've been on both sides, and just tell us about how we've talked about how important content creators are today for a destination, and would love to have your little perspective on the shifts which are happening from traditional journalism to content creation.
I think definitely one is witnessing a shift, especially in the last 3 or 4 years, with tourism boards, hoteliers, tourism boards and hotels. They are starting to court and try to kind of woo these content creators far more, because the content that's going out is being instantly consumed. I also see a lot of the kind of budgets that were allocated to traditional publications, say 10 years ago, are slowly being kind of diverted now to pay the content creators to get that instant content
Because with
out.
the content creators, you co-create.
Sorry?
You co-create.
You co-create.
Yes.
And also the numbers that a content creator gives you, a magazine or a newspaper will never ever be able to match that, right now. So I definitely see a huge shift, if you go to a tourism board, if you go to a hotel with a mixed group of, say, content creators and newspaper, magazine journalists, you can sense that that there's a lot of attention towards the content creator saying, shoot here, shoot there, shoot here, shoot there. Because I guess now people are seeing that the ROI is coming in digital and the ROI is coming on the phone, in my opinion, as opposed to someone publishing something 3 months later where a fraction of the public would read it, you know?
You know, Pankaj talked about his secret sauce being that not a photographer, but somebody who understands luxury imagery. What has it been for Riaan? Because you are one of the few who's made the shift from traditional journalism to content creation. What is that secret sauce?
You know, firstly, I just want to add to that. When you say, even in terms of content creation, I do try to put in my background as a journalist in. Like, there's a lot of storytelling rather than just vain pictures. Of course, there are vain pictures. And, and pictures of your clothes and shoes and watch.
Which you look very good in.
There are vain pictures, but also when one is traveling, I do like to write beautiful captions. I do like to tell stories, you know, and kind of.
And do you take most of the photos yourself when you travel?
Not always.
You always have.
I do a lot of pictures myself and a lot of
But
content.
that also helps because even if you have somebody to take them, you're at least able to brief them right.
Yes, absolutely. So I have a video team that does it, but also I've kind of skilled myself at taking videos, taking photos.
And you did that early.
Yeah. You know?
That's an important thing. You did that early because it's sometimes, for somebody who is a writer, it's very difficult sometimes to make that shift, and that perhaps explains Riaan Jad's story.
Yeah, so to answer your question, yes, there's that imagery. So every time you go somewhere, you're always thinking, what will look nice on video? What will look nice? I beg your pardon. What would look nice with me in the frame or without me in my frame? Or just my hand pointing out to something and kind of describing something. So that's something that I'm always thinking of when I'm arriving at a hotel or at a destination. So that element of imagery is always on.
Lubaina, we've really spoken about the soft skills. Each of them have described a little about how it's their passion and what they bring into the job. But tell us a little about what is happening when it comes to courses today. Are the travel and tourism one-year diplomas or graduation in travel and tourism? And are there still a lot of jobs which are there with the large travel agencies who do ticketing and more?
Wow, so I'm not too sure if I have a complete answer to that. Maybe I'm going to ask my friends from the travel companies to tell me
We'll
that.
probably do that during the Q&A also, yes.
But I think what I'd like to say is a whole lot of people that I come across are people who've just been working in the industry. I personally got into it by fluke, like Pankaj. I studied fashion, I majored in textile designing, and then I was drifting from here and there, didn't find my feet, and then eventually got into it, and I'm so glad that I did. But I don't really come across a lot of formal education, to be very honest with you. I do hire a whole lot of interns, because IIM writes to us all the time when they do their MBAs, and that's the quality that we're looking at, especially in my kind of business that I do. So, but I know that there is Sophia College that runs some travel and tourism, am I right?
I'm sure SNDT also
Smita,
does.
and
Yeah.
maybe there's like Garware, I don't know. I think there are a few, but I don't think it's done in a very structured manner. I personally also feel that parents, I don't think really want to choose travel as a career for their children. I mean, I think it doesn't come up as an option unless you've been in the travel business yourself and you want to pass it on. A whole lot of people who made it big are driven by passion, is what I feel. So that change is yet to come.
And making the right
study.
shift at the right time. Sorry?
But please study.
Please study.
That's a message
Yeah,
to all the
please
youngsters
study.
out there.
Please
Study, it need not be travel alone, but study. Yeah?
But please study.
Why do you say that, Riaan?
Because that's something that I say a lot, because especially as a content creator, we see a lot of people out there posting content, misleading the youth, saying that, I didn't pass high school and I'm making 5
Gosh,
lakhs
yeah.
a month.
Yeah,
and, I would say your content creation journey has a shelf life. It's extremely important to study no matter what and be educated and qualified in no matter what field. But please do not give up your studies. And if you happen to be a content creator on the side, well and good. But you certainly should not be stopping your studies after the 12th or the 11th and saying, oh, मैं influencer बनना चाहती हूँ और मैं ये content creator बनना चाहता हूँ. And no.
Very good advice. I think if all the
If you're
parents here
listening
will
to
come
that-
and hug you after this, Riya.
No, if you're listening to that by all these motivational speakers on Instagram who tell you that your formal education is not important to be a content creator, it's wrong. I think.
Yeah,
Lubaina, you
I
please
just
study.
like to add that, yeah, it's true. There are no entry barriers, honestly, to the business, which is why a whole lot of people just get into it. But it's important to have a strong foundation, and that is going to actually bring about a lot of talent in the industry.
Talking of this, yeah, please go ahead,
Sorry,
Prasad.
if I can just add to what Riaan just said.
Yes,
an
Mr.
education will
Engineer.
at least, yeah, the education will at least help you frame your sentences properly. Full stops, commas, all of it matter. Spellings matter. So yes, get an education.
Adding on to what they said, yes, I confess that all of it began for me as a fluke. But then the ground reality also is that I tried a bunch of other things in photography before I could say to myself that, oh, travel is what I find my calling in. But I did a bunch of things, and I still do a bunch of things to keep myself relevant, to keep myself motivated, to keep myself, inspired. Why, like, if I'm shooting, like, for example, if I'm shooting fashion, I get that spontaneity from shooting fashion. That spontaneity I converted into going into shooting some kind of a moment that happens where there are some guys who are fishermen on the beach, and then like there's some kind of this moment that I need to capture. That spontaneity that comes from fashion goes into like with shooting these fishermen, and then the kind of compositions I do, that goes like with their food that they hold in their hand, like the fish they hold in their hand, that kind of textures and design that helps me frame that composition goes into my food photography, and then the kind of stability that I get into food photography, because food does not move, right? Like you've got to compose and frame and design your frame all together. That stability in turn goes back into fashion again, perhaps. So it's like a circle of inspiration, circle of learnings, that goes around for the foundation to actually deliver what you're going to be delivering to that client, who may not even realize that, oh, you've done a bunch of other things before that what comes on the table for them, you know?
You know, all our panelists have said something very important. Just to get a good job in travel, it's not necessary that you do a postgraduate diploma in travel. But everybody has talked about education. And before I come back to Pankaj, I would like, again, foundation and tips. Prasad, I'm sure you'll agree with me that to be a good travel writer, it's not necessary that you have done a bachelor's in journalism or postgraduate. But a tip you would like to share with all the people here who are interested in being, or those who want to be interested in being a travel writer?
I would say learn, constantly learn. Whatever it is that you're doing, constantly learn. You'll always find something in what you, as what Pankaj just said. If you learn something today, and then you'll figure out that, say you've gone to a hotel, you've seen how they've done an experience, seen how they've done a particular service. That just translates into your own understanding and knowledge of how something can look nice, feel nice, be nice. And maybe tomorrow, and it's a transition I've done myself. Like over the years, I've gone to a bunch of hotels, gone to a bunch of destinations, learned from what things people do there, and now apply it in the consulting gigs that I do. Going into a hotel and telling them how to do that experience or how a particular room should be laid out, because I've seen that over the past 10 years, learned from that, and now I'm trying to apply it in a whole new way, in a whole new place. So I think for me, the one thing always is to say, learn. If you stay hungry and learn, you will never go hungry. So
Always learn is the mantra from Prasad, whether you want to be a travel writer or travelpreneur. Anything which you would like to share with those who want to be content creators or make a mark in the travel or tourism space, Riaan?
Definitely, I would say learn for sure. I mean, when you have to be super tech connected, you need to know what the current softwares and the current editing styles and tools are. So you need to be constantly like aware and updated of what's going on in the social media space. Within that, you need to know what are the content trends as well, like what's working on Shorts, what's working on Insta Reels, what's working on Insta Stories and everything. So it's a constant process of updating yourself, keeping abreast of the prevailing
And you are
trends.
very tech savvy, one can.
You have to be tech savvy, whether you like it or not. You have to be tech savvy to be able to succeed in this field. You need to learn how to, like, I did not know how to edit my own video, but I taught myself how to do it.
And how did you learn it through YouTube videos?
Yeah, and ask friends or whatever. So like though I do have an editing team who does my videos, I know the skill. I have taught myself the skill that if someone is on leave or if I need to deliver
Absolutely.
a video, I can do it myself. So I think it's very important to do that. And keep abreast of all the trends. Constantly watch what everyone in the industry is up to, whether it's hotels, tourism boards and everything. So you have a nice overview on what's happening in the digital space.
And when when you engage with Lubaina, ask a lot of questions to learn
Yes.
what she has done and what more you can do, because someone like her is meeting 10 travel journalists and content creators every week. Right? Lubaina spoke about jobs, but again, what we've really come to is the number of opportunities there are for. There's a time when we used to watch the Hindi movies and there was somebody called the guide. Today, in every city, there is so many people, whether it's like my neighbor Suchi, who runs a very successful homestay in Nainital. She came back from China, and in Nainital, so here she's sitting in Bombay, and she's running a homestay back there. So this is what technology does. And who would have ever thought, you're in Bombay, you set up your business in Bombay only because you think, oh, this is the commercial capital. But she's done, and like that, there are so many people who are in their own way. Either it's the place they belong to, or their passions, and they are running this thing. I'm coming back to Pankaj on this. Give us one example of what you did in any hotel or any place you traveled to, and how you created some imagery which was which led to quite a new business or a huge opportunity for that property.
Yeah, well, there's one example that comes to my mind right now is we're photographing for a 5-star hotel. It was a yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So we're photographing for this 5-star hotel for this project, a city property. So luxurious, nice landscaping done, etc. But didn't really have the kind of like the kind of kick, to give you that luxury space experience, because people would just go in there for their business trips, right? You would check in for your conferences and then like attend your meetings and then just bounce, right? You didn't really experience the property to the fullest what the architecture around would offer you in general as a product. So while walking around with the Marcom managers and communication directors and just like wrecking the property to understand like what can we shoot, in one of those examples we figured that they had a beautiful landscape with like a lovely pond with like a beautiful pagoda and like a bridge that goes across the water body. You could just go for a stroll in that property and enjoy and like cut off from the city life. So that bit, I figured that could be like a really nice thing. And I saw like there were a lot of fish around over there in the pond and kids were getting attracted to it. But nobody was really doing much about it. So while we were observing of what the property can offer, I kind of suggested them that, okay, you know what? Why don't we like make this as a visual appeal, like another lifestyle experiential shot to sell your property, that why don't you ask those kids to actually feed the fish? And that becomes like an activity that you can actually showcase in your itinerary, saying that, okay, when you check in, you can do like a spa and you can do like XYZ, restaurant, but you can also do like fish feeding as an activity. Long story short, they figured like the security hassles, the hygiene hassles, and all the other constraints. And then next thing you know that we were getting the approval to go and do this shot with like a family sequence, mother, father holding their back, kids enjoying feeding the fish. And that became one of the highlight for their promotional pictures for the property. And now it's a real-time activity.
Lovely.
Wow.
We've talked about so many travel options, but here, Lubaina, who's made her mark in luxury travel, she thought of, this is again a fabulous business opportunity of doing India's first experiential travel. So as a co-founder and curator of this festival, what is it? When did you think that you want to do this here, and what inspired you to do this? Lubaina?
Okay, so if you're to ask me honestly, I think for the last 15 years that I've been sort of doing promotions for various brands, tourism brands. So I'm in the business of travel. I do travel a lot. I'm also a travel enthusiast. I see a fair amount of the world, but a lot of my travel is also for business purposes. I think for the last 15 years, I think I've understood trends and understood travelers in India. And India, believe me, is one of the most potential source markets in the world. The whole world has their eyes on India and the Indian traveler. But I think I only understand the Indian traveler from reports, okay, that I see being published, not really, where I can have some sort of a conversation. And I feel that travel is today a lifestyle choice, especially amongst the millennials and the Gen Zs and even older generations. And I really wanted to build a platform, a community where we all get together, whether we are travel sellers, we are promoting travel, we are advising people on travel, or we are tourism boards, sort of wanting you to travel to a country, or you're travelers yourself, or you are, sort of content creators, writers, photographers. I mean, there's just so many of us, right, invested in this business and in the profession or in our passion. So I just wanted to sort of get all of us together and talk. And I think one of the reasons why we even have somebody like a Shivya over here is, I think what she spoke about, I don't know how many of you all were here, but it was so... I think it was so relevant, and it's time we bring about a change. So I really want to use the platform to build more awareness, where we make travel more meaningful for all of us. And I think first is people like us who are part of the fraternity and community who start to tick off. There was a laundry list. I think what she's achieved is just incredible as a conscious traveler. But I think we all need to do a little bit ourselves, each one of us.
Prasad, before we move on to the Q&A, anything which you see really as trending when it comes to travel in 2025 or 2026?
Not entirely, but I just want to add to something Lubaina said.
Sure.
I think when we focus on travel, there's a lot of talk about millennials and how much they want to travel. I think a lot of the true spenders in travel end up being those who are 40, 45 up. And I find that especially tour operators or hotels often make that mistake or appear to be making that mistake right now to not focus on them, and because they are the ones with the money and the ability and the intent to spend and travel. And I find that in 2025, 2026 is a region, is a sort of an audience section that will continue to travel even more than they have before. And if one were to call it a trend, then that would be it.
So it's not just the millennials or the senior citizens who have retired, but those who are 40 plus who have their own little interests and goals which could be different from those in their 20s or their 60s.
Absolutely, because now they've made the money, they've have the money.
And many
with
of them retire also at 40.
Exactly.
The CEOs.
Exactly. The people who've retired or they're empty nesters, and now they have the money and they're willing to travel and go to the places that they couldn't in their 20s and their 30s, which are all aspirational for them at that point in time. And then probably travel to newer destinations which are aspirational to them today. So, I think that as a trend, as a segment, is I see that segment growing and growing in the next few years.
So from creative careers in photography, writing, content creation, travel representation, IP related, there are a host of opportunities and they're only growing. And as Lubaina mentioned, India is the biggest source markets. I remember when we were in school, we would all be hearing about the population in India. Now it's just the other way around. Our population is our strength. So we have about 5 minutes. We'd love to have some questions from our guests here. And thank you very much, Lubaina, for bringing us all together here. It's been a very engaging session. There are so many questions you could ask our friends here, but of course we don't have time. But go ahead. Uday, lovely. Please go ahead.
Firstly, excellent, very insightful conversation. And I think all of you are rocking it in your own sphere in the industry. But as the doyens of the travel industry, as I would call each one of you, my question is, you've used natural intelligence to the hilt, right? To really help you do what you're doing. My question is more, there's a whole new world of artificial intelligence.
Wow, AI.
Right? AI. And the line is becoming very blur when it comes to the domain expertise and technology. A number of you have said how you embrace and adopt technology into your profession. You talked about languages, now you have AI translators, you talked about content and a whole lot of things. So I want to know how you are engaging AI as your personal assistant, and what is your guidance here to the new generation, the Gen Zs, who want to get into your profession as to what they should learn, right? Now you have Mid-Journey that are creating videos, you have image generators. I mean, of course, ChatGPT everybody knows about, can sit down and write content. So maybe some idea or...
Thank you very much, Uday. Excellent question. I think Uday deserves a big
Thank you.
ovation.
Thank you, Parthip.
This, for all of you, this is one at a time you can go, yeah.
So, okay.
Artificial intelligence, I have a very funny and lovely example that I want to share. If you can use it nicely in your job, that's really amazing. I recently had this once-in-a-lifetime experience where I was all alone inside the Taj Mahal complex in Agra with no tourists altogether, no tourists at all. But how did I do that? with AI. I just photoshopped everybody out of the picture on my phone using Apple's new AI. And essentially, I created that picture, which is so stunning, where I'm just standing in the middle of like the whole Taj Mahal complex, and like hundreds of people in the background have just been wiped away by AI, you know? And that's a new tool.
Pankaj and Prasad, please go ahead.
When it comes to writing, I've been told multiple times, like, oh, why didn't you just use ChatGPT, right? But I'm one of those, call me old school, one of those people who's resisting change on that forefront. But I just feel that the creativity, when it comes to whether it's to travel or through photography, a lot of that comes from the human experience, the human intelligence that goes into it. Yes, there is great use with whether it's a translation app or whether it is, something that's like Google showing you real-time updates on traffic and things like that, which are lovely to use. Or Google, reminding you that you have to get on a conference call on an airline, what time you need to leave from home.
Or even
all of that.
fact-checking.
Yeah, but
Sorry, what did you say, Riaan?
Fact-checking.
Okay, yes.
Yeah, I mean, so a lot of that is also a bit, I find that a bit, it's a double-edged sword. It's about how we use it and how well we sort of wield that sword that will define, the role AI plays in everything we do. Of course, if you're a hotel or a tour operator, you don't need, unfortunately, to depend upon, I think Nike or Puma just did an entire ad just using AI without a single agency involved. And it looks fantastic, right? But I mean, does it look generic? Yes. But so it's just, I think there is pluses and minuses, and it's just how we sort of wield that double-edged sword.
Pankaj.
Well, very simply put, it's called AI. It's called artificial intelligence. The word artificial itself is defined by the name of it. He's a content creator, he's a writer, I'm a photographer. What are we essentially? We're essentially creators. We are creative people. The base undercurrent, let's not miss that. We are all creative people, right? We have our own gift of craft that we are enhancing every day of our lives, no matter how much AI takes up. Well, eventually, in my opinion, if I were to take my career somewhere, I would go back. I would not go forward. AI will take up the generic part, the legwork part of the craft, but cannot take away the craft, right? I mean, consider 20 years down the line, 50 years down the line. How important would it be? I'll give you an example of something like a candle, right? If I were to come to you 120 years ago, 150 years ago, say that, you know what, the candles are going to be the most exotic thing that you can keep on your table as a decor for your house, and it'll be like a style statement, right? People would laugh at you. No, we burn these every day to light up our houses, isn't it? You're foolish. This is an everyday thing. Why would that be a piece of decor, exotic thing, anything of that sort, right? But cut to about a century later, now it's like a thing of something that you collect. It's a collectible, isn't it? Same thing will happen to the craft is what I assume as a photographer from my perspective, that 50 years down the line, 60 years down the line, human-made craft will have the kind of value that nobody could imagine today. So engaging in that is perhaps the most valuable thing you can do right now, because any which way the technology is going to take over you. Any which ways you cannot drive your car without a technology. You cannot go to even poop for all you care without technology today's day and age, right? You need to know your stats, you need to wear your wearables, right? You need to know your pulse, you need to know your heartbeat, everything. So AI will take over, but how much do you invest in your craft today will matter for tomorrow. He was talking about he takes his videos wherever he goes and whatever. You will take your photos, you'll take your videos and photos. The point is that if you have to be just from photographer's perspective, if you want to be a travel photographer or any kind of photographer, don't mistake the undercurrent over here is that you don't take any photos anymore. You have to make the photos. You have to go out and make something. You have to create something. That shift has to happen. Otherwise, it's all going to be generic. All your efforts are going to be done by anybody else that you will not be special anymore.
So my question to sir is, how do you distinguish yourself from travel influencers?
For Riaan, I think.
Who are you
Maybe
asking?
for Riaan,
Prasad, both of
Riaan
them.
or any one of you.
Both of them.
How do you distinguish yourself from travel influencers? Because I introduce you
But
as
I
a
am a
content.
travel influencer.
Or
So how
and
to
a content
differentiate
creator.
myself?
I'm so
I
sorry,
am what
but
I am.
No, so That's something you constantly grapple because you get asked by so many people. Like a while ago, Riaan spoke about, when you go to a hotel, you're being told where all to photograph, what all to do. As a journalist, I think my strength is the fact that I'm able to write what I want to write and without being told what to write. I have that leeway. Yes, perhaps I make a lot less than the average influencer does, but I find that this is more satisfying to me and I end up learning a lot more. So yes, sometimes when you go on a familiarization trip, they are, like recently I was in Macau, there were 5 journalists and 55 influencers there.
Wow.
And literally it was crazy because literally after a point, I mean, we couldn't even see these hotel rooms because people were crawling all over. There was someone lying on the bed to take a picture. There was someone. It was just ridiculous. So literally at one point, you just had to say, I'm going to walk away from this now and let me know when the madness is done and then I'll come back in, right? So it just is something that the way I think of myself as a journalist again, I'm sure Riaan, when he was a journalist and now as a content creator will attest to it as well, is that you just have to say, this is why am I here, what am I bringing to the table, how am I going to be different from what of these people are. They are there for the instant, they're there for a photograph, they're going to order like a caption and they're going to be gone. Hopefully what I produce is content, long form content, short form content, whatever it is, that the viewer, the reader will walk away from it richer with some more knowledge than a caption or a photograph can ever deliver.
So content, sometimes it's more clickbait, the short term and the thing. Last question. Maybe, sorry,
I have another
okay,
question.
go ahead and
I'm
then
so
last
sorry.
questions because we're running short of time.
So
Go ahead.
right now I'm working on a research also, like how media portrays travel destinations through writings and shows. Few months back, one media magazine had put a video, like a guide to Spain. And this year also they had mentioned 25 top destinations. And one of the destinations was Goa. So these both destinations are dealing with over-tourism, right? So what do you have to say about that? Because it's very contradictory, so...
Well, excess tourism, over tourism, you've seen protests all across Europe against excess tourism. In Goa as well, whether you go to villages like Anjuna, Vagator, where locals are protesting against excess tourism. Unfortunately or fortunately, part of it is because locals have done it to themselves. Yes, it is money. You can't blame them for doing it, and now they are suffering as a result of it. And as far as media organizations are going, especially in digital space these days, you're seeing, oh, this word is trending. People are looking for this, and you end up producing content, whether it is a content creator or a magazine on its website, right, or a digital publication. Often they're looking for these sort of keywords that people are searching, and then producing content as a result of that, for higher numbers, for greater visibility, for click-throughs, all of that. And sometimes, whether it's Goa or Spain, could be an advertiser. And hence to please that advertiser, they will end up creating content around them, even if there's really nothing new on that destination. So in terms of magazines and newspapers or media is concerned, yes, technically there should be some level of responsibility on what kind of tourism you promote and how you promote tourism there. But that's always easier said and done. And that there are various reasons why you see the same destinations repeated. Either it is because of consumer interest online, or it is because of another reason, sort of a monetary reason.
Like North Goa, for example, the most over-tourism destination. Example of most over-tourism. If I post a content piece, I'm no fan of North Goa, but if I post a content piece on North Goa, it goes viral. So sometimes you just have to,
But won't that be a question
overlook
of credibility?
And sometimes I also feel that the states or the countries want tourism to contribute to their local economies through actually revenue. But what we need to do as travelers is probably not just do a touch and go kind of a trip. If you're going there, then contribute to that place by actually doing slow travel and stay there longer so that you are making a meaningful impact.
I think what we're trying to say is there's stories and content that's done in public interest and one content that's done in interest to the public. Now, it's not always, and business interest. So it's just not always possible to, there are various reasons why these things happen. And as travelers, as Lubaina said, we've got to be more conscious. As travel journalists as well, we've got to be more conscious. Are there businesses that are necessarily, if we have the ability to, right, as freelance journalists or journalists or editors of magazines, if we have the ability to, then we be more judicious about the kind of places we cover, how we cover them, and what kind of messaging we put out. I think that is the sort of duty and the responsibility of the media. Do we always do it? No. But should we do it? Yes.
I mean, obviously, I'm really young to be asking this, but since all of y'all are so accomplished in your respective fields, I just want to ask the one thing that y'all did when y'all were young in order to network. How did y'all pitch yourself to your dream tourism boards, agencies, brands? Just want to know that little tip.
That
if
tip
y'all
for
could.
networking, very nice. We'll start with Riaan, and I think each of us will answer, or you want to, whoever.
Just something y'all did in your 20s.
Okay, maybe before, if Riaan is thinking, I'll start. I think it all started with me saying, I'm not going to be afraid of rejection. Very often, we do not take opportunities because we fear rejection. What will happen at the most? We'll get a cold answer from the other person, but slowly you will realize maybe that person, you have to rationalize, maybe that person was just shy or preoccupied and not because they didn't like you. And moment you think like that, you will enjoy your outings more, and you will also make more friends. Okay, we'll start with each of you. Let's go in any order.
I felt like for me as networking, before going to someone else, I had a thought about myself. I had to think about who I was, why I was doing something, whatever I was doing. I had to define myself in some way or the other. The more I thought about myself, the more I could then find relatable people to go to, relatable events to go to, relatable kind of subjects to shoot. And that kind of defined my networking automatically. It was a natural by-process. Like, I had to know more about myself before going out and meeting others. So then, for example, I kind of tried a lot to figure out if I were to be doing a lot of weddings as a photographer, but then I realized that that is not me. Automatically, what kind of got me the kick was the travel part, that, oh, I could go to like Dubai to shoot a wedding, or I could go to like Sikkim to shoot a wedding, or I could go to some really offbeat locations. So what was the reality of it? It was not the weddings that enticed me, it was the travel. So automatically my networking happened to people who were in travel. So defining yourself was more important for me to go out, like to know you.
That
Understanding
helps.
yourself is
That
the first key baseline to go out to meet new people.
I think one of the things that I didn't do for the longest time, and I regret that, was use social media effectively to sort of, put my brand out there, because a lot of my clients are sitting around the world and there's just no way to reach out to them, right? So putting my story out there through LinkedIn, through Instagram, etc., personal, the kind of work that we do and how we transformed destinations, I think in recent times it has actually proved to be quite impactful.
I think knowing who you're approaching, what their story is, even if it's like a tourism board, a little bit of an education, a hotel, whatever it is, whoever you're approaching, to have a conversation, even if it's an editor of a magazine, you need to know what their product is. You need to have some sort of base level understanding, so that when they speak to you, they come away thinking, oh, okay, she knows what we're about, right? That automatically creates a bridge. And so they find you more approachable, and they are more approachable to you. So knowing who you're talking to, why you're approaching them, and how you're approaching them, but knowing who they are matters most.
Also researching the right kind of people, right? Like, how did you all find out, for example, there's a brand that you wanted to always work with. How do you find the POC for that exact brand? That is the crux.
I'll answer, but Riaan would like to share. Know your tip also.
Very relevant to you.
You can, if you have no POC to that brand, you can try your luck by just DMing them, or just kind of finding somehow someone who knows them. But I mean, you have to be a hustler in that sense. But I think the first 5 years of your career, you need to be really out there networking all the time. On weekdays, like attend as a young journalist, you need to be attending as many press conferences and as many events as possible. Most importantly, in today's day and age, make sure that you're putting yourself out on social. You cannot just open up your profile. You can't just be an anonymous person in the media. You've chosen to be in this profession. You need to be out there. You need to be tagging people. You need to be cross-tagging people. If you've attended someone's event, you need to be tagging all the stakeholders, so you will immediately establish contact with all 5 of them.
A great tip.
And if you're not going to do that, you're just going to be left behind in the race.
Talking about how do you find the decision maker in a DM, I find sometimes people it's sometimes very simple. I think you have to have a complete profile on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, because very often the person you're messaging could be from your school, or he could have worked in the same organization where you worked at earlier. For example, on LinkedIn, if someone messages me, it says, okay, both of you have worked in time. I'm automatically likely to respond to that message than somebody who is just messaging me where the profile is incomplete. And I think the art of successful entrepreneurs is really sometimes not just sending a DM somewhere, but also knowing who is the right decision maker in the organization and understanding that there are different people in an organization. If you don't know that, ask somebody that this is what I want. And it's not just social media today, it's also so many WhatsApp groups. I find any contact, if you're a member of any community groups, you can somewhere and try to be as clear as possible. Don't just say, can I have a contact at Taj? There's a Taj is an ocean with 3,000 people. I am looking for a contact at the Taj Lake Palace, somebody who takes care of marketing. And very often when you DM the right person and tell them who they are, sometimes they may not respond, but sometimes they would be very, very happy to help you
Being specific,
if your message is fairly clear.
Slide into people's DMs.
Great. May I request all the panelists to kindly come forward for a photo op. Thank you very much.